Okay, Chapter 7, I have time. Yeah, I have time. It's only a page. Okay. Having reached Moscow by morning train, Levin went to stay at the house of his half-brother Pt1Ch7, who was older than he, and after changing his clothes, enters his brother's study, intending to tell him why he had come and to ask his advice. But his brother was not alone. A well-known professor of philosophy was with him, who had come especially from Kharkov, to settle a dispute that had arisen between them on an important philosophical question. The professor was engaged in a fierce polemic against the materialists, and Sergius Koshnev, who followed this polemic with interest, on reading the professor's last article, had written to him reproaching him with having conceded too much to the materialists, and the professor had come at once to talk the matter over. The question was the fashionable one, whether a definitive line exists between the psychological and physiological phenomena in human activity, and if so, where it lies. When Levin entered, Sergius Ivanitch greeted him with the coldly affable smile he bestowed on everybody, and having introduced him to the professor, went on with the discussion. The small spectacled man with the narrow forehead interrupted the conversation a moment to say, "How do you do?" to Levin, and paying no further attention to him, went on talking. Levin sat down to wait till the professor should go, but soon became interested in the subject of the conversation. He had seen the papers, the articles they were discussing, and had read them because they interested him as the development of the basis of natural science, familiar to him as he had studied that faculty at the university. But he had never connected these scientific deductions as to man's animal origin, reflex actions, biology, and sociology, with those questions concerning the meaning to himself of life and death, which had of late more and more frequently occurred to him. Listening to his brother's conversation with the professor, he noticed that they connected the scientific question with the spiritual, and several times almost reached the latter. But every time they approached this, which seemed to him the most important question, they had once hurriedly retreated again, plunged into the domain of defined subdivisions, reservations, quotations, hints and references to authorities, and he found it difficult to understand what they were talking about. "I cannot admit," said Koshnev, with his usual clear and precise expression and polished style, "I cannot on any account agree with Kais that my whole conception of the external world is the outcome of impressions. The most fundamental perception, that of existence, is not received through the senses, for there is no special organ to convey that perception." "Yes, but they, worst notes and brief-saws, will tell you that your conception of existence results from the collective effort of all your sensations, and is therefore a result of sensations. Worst actually says that without the senses there can be no perception of existence." "I would maintain the opposite," began Koshnev. But here again it seemed to Levin that, having reached the most important matter, they avoided it, and he made up his mind to ask the professor a question. "Consequently, if my senses are destroyed, if my body dies, no further existence is possible?" he asked. The professor, vexed and apparently mentally hurt by the interruption, turned to look at the strange questioner, who resembled a barge hauler rather than a philosopher, and then looked at Koshnev as if asking, "What can one say to this?" But Koshnev, who did not speak with anything like the same effort or as one-sidedly as the professor, and had room in his head for an answer to his opponent as well as for the comprehension of the simple and natural point of view from which the question arose, smiled and said, That question we have as yet no right to decide. We have not the data. We have not the data. Where are my glasses? We have not the data, added the professor, and went back to his arguments. "No," said he. "I point out that if a Pt1Ch7 definitely states sensation is based on impressions, we must still carefully distinguish between these two perceptions." Levin listened no longer, but sat waiting for the professor to go.